And that second leg is tomorrow. Our coverage begins at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on Paramount+. We already talked about Inter and Barcelona. We have to talk about this match because it is up for either of these teams to be able to take it. And I think that if you tell Arsenal, even though they were playing at home in that first leg, if you tell them they're going into the second leg just down a goal, I think they would have taken it. Nico, what are your three biggest storylines going into this second leg?
But now they have to go to PSG and beat this guy, Gianluigi, Donnarumma. He's had, it's a redemption run for him in the Champions League with PSG. They brought him in, sure, to win Ligue 1, but mostly to win Champions League, something that has avoided and eluded PSG for so long. And this guy specifically, in the second leg of that Liverpool matchup onwards, he's been world-class, extraordinary. And if he can keep that momentum going, that's going to be arguably the most important factor for PSG to get through to the next round. I mean, when your goalkeeper wins you games, literally wins you games, then everything follows suit in that sense, because we've seen it time and time again with Thibaut Courtois. You expect every time Real Madrid plays poorly or plays really well, you either expect Thibaut Courtois to have 14 saves and keep you in the game, or have that one save that keeps the other team at bay. So a very, very important game for him, especially in front of the home team. On that note, Ødegaard, Saka, this is a big game for them. Ødegaard was missing in the first leg. Saka had a couple of moments. You could tell that when Arsenal started playing better, it was through Saka, but they still scored no goals at home. Ødegaard wasn't getting his players in the position where he's pulling the strings and allowing them to score goals. So beyond the set pieces, beyond all of these things that Arsenal has, we were praising them for most part last season because of how good Ødegaard was. So this is a stage where your stars need to shine. And if they don't shine, odds are you're going to be eliminated from the competition. You built up the season, you built up this process to get to a point like this. Tell Mikel Arteta that in a couple of years he would be playing in a Champions League semi-final on the doorstep of the final, and you say, all right, my project is going forward. I'm with my stars. Wow, we'll devour the world. And Ødegaard didn't show up. So for him and Saka, really, if they have a good performance, the team is also going to have a good performance, because these guys are the heart and soul, they're the motor of Arsenal. So time to shine. And then number one, PSG not giving into the pressure. Because honestly, who's the onus on? I think it's on PSG, especially after Arsenal lost the first leg. Everyone's expecting PSG to go through, even on paper from the very beginning. You said they were happy to walk away with a 1-0, and I think that kind of alludes to the fact that PSG's the better side, right? So, sure, if you're reading English media, maybe pressure's on Arsenal, but PSG's also never won the Champions League before. PSG is playing in a league of their own in France, where they blow opposition out of the water. They only lose when they've already won the title. They need to win the Champions League. And not giving into the pressure is in a situation perhaps like, entertain me, Arsenal finds an early goal. Arsenal finds a goal, the first goal of the game in the second half. By maybe no merit of their own or against the run of play, because Champions League does that to you. Champions League does that to you. You might be balling and you're losing 1-0. How does PSG psychologically respond to that? Because are they the better team? I think they are the better team.
Yeah, if we were going to do a power ranking, which we may have to do for a future segment, but a power ranking on the two clubs, or clubs who have not won the Champions League before, and the pressure and where they rank, these two would be at the very, very top. The money invested, the expectation. So I love that you put that number one. I want to go and talk about this guy, though. We talk about Donnarumma, but Martin Ødegaard, he was no bueno. He was awful. In that first leg, he disappeared, as you said. This is a guy that when I watched that match, he had more hair flips than actual impact on the match. This is a guy that when we saw the captain's armband, I'm looking for leadership. I'm looking for factorache, as Adrian Garcia Marquez taught me in Spanish. But looking at this 11, the biggest talking point going in from a PSG perspective, though, is how do Arsenal contain this man, Ousmane Dembele, who is playing out of his mind right now, Nico. And what I saw with Thomas Partey coming in back in as well was he exploited the space that Declan Rice really left him on that first goal. But up until he came off the field, it looked like one-way traffic for much of the game outside of 15 minutes.
So looking at these lineups, projected lineups, obviously, Dembele back in training. He missed the match over the weekend. It was a rotation for PSG where they had 10 changes. So it didn't really miss him anyway. They weren't planning on playing him regardless. He's back in training, expected to play. Timber back in training as well. Riccardo Calafiori back. So it seems like both of these teams are getting healthy right before this matchup. But right before we go through Arsenal's lineup, Nico, I thought it was interesting that Mikel Arteta was the only one of the 4 semifinalists in Champions League, was the only manager that did not rotate his side in league play this past weekend. Oh, yeah, and they still lost to Bournemouth with that decision. What was going through Mikel Arteta's mind there? Why do that when you have the biggest match of your season this week?
The reasoning that I can find behind that is the rhythm of the players. They had 4 days to recover, rest, and get ready to go for the second leg of a semi-final. They asked Luis Enrique about it, and Luis Enrique kind of dodged the question because he's not going to answer for Mikel Arteta. He has his ways of training, and there's probably logic behind that. It wasn't done without thinking ahead, right? Everything is done with intention, very obviously. So maybe Arteta believed this is a way to get them in rhythm, and even if they lost, they're fresh and ready to go, and it might work adversely for PSG that rested their stars at the weekend. You never know until the 90 minutes are up on Wednesday. But yeah, I mean, both teams did lose at the weekend. One team rotated and lost. The other team didn't rotate and still lost.
Yeah. Which one of these two managers has more pressure to go through to the final?
For me, Mikel Arteta. Mikel Arteta, solely because of how starved this Arsenal fan base is. And you look at the project that he's done over the last couple seasons, the biggest thing that's missing is a trophy. Second place, everything that he's done, he's taken this Arsenal club from obscurity before he got there with Unai Emery, the Phil project there, the gap between Arsene Wenger and to arrive to him, to get some pride, to get a bit of glory, maybe not glory, but a bit of just belief back in the club, if we will. But this is the sort of match that can define Arsenal seasons completely. And the difference and the expectation of PSG, I just think the nervous nature of Arteta doing this, I think that crack is going to come through the pavement in a tie like this.
I think about it differently than you. Imagine an Arsenal elimination. What would we be talking about? Yeah, PSG are the better side. They beat Arsenal. Did Arsenal overachieve in the Champions League? Maybe they did, or they got to a place that you can't hold it against them. A semi-final of a Champions League is pretty good for Arsenal. What can I hold against Arsenal? Out of the Premier League title fight very early on, I think the pressure on Arsenal was much more in the Prem than it was in the Champions League. And you could say that because they got to a Champions League semi-final, despite their woes in the Premier League, because they're still second, this was a step forward in the Mikel Arteta process. And overall, they end up crashing out here. I don't know if it's the end of the world, but if Luis Enrique loses, what are we going to be saying about PSG? Or at least what are they going to be saying in France about PSG? The project that was going well, but it got, again, PSG falls short to a team that's inferior to them on paper. Who's better? Who's better on paper? Who plays better football, PSG or Arsenal?
Right now, on paper, I think PSG are the best
team. Okay.
In the Champions League.
And the best team loses to a team that's inferior to you in a sense, right? The differences are very small, but going to Parc des Princes with a 1-0 lead and then coming out on the losing side, for me, it's Luis Enrique that has the pressure to get it done. Then the final is the final. Whatever may happen, may happen.
I agree with you because the simple fact that you can make excuses for Arsenal. They still don't have a number 9. They still need another winger. You have all the injuries. You have excuses. Luis Enrique, we've talked about this PSG side being the best team in the world since January. And these are the odds to advance. So clearly, everyone and all the money on PSG here. Quick predictions. Lahoud, first from you.
Look, at plus 360, normally I would be running after that, but I'm going to go with the easy money, the smart money. Ousmane Dembele is the difference, and PSG are just on a mission right now. They're going to win.
And these are odds to advance, not to win the game. Odds to advance to the final. Nico.
PSG is going to advance to the final. I think it'll be more than a 1-goal difference.